Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Coach's Corner. We are your coaches for this evening. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach, and I'm joined by my good friend.
The Uncle Junior, and I go by the Consistency Coach.
And we are your coaches for Coach's Corner. Listen, we are super excited to be with you on this beautiful day because this is the first time we get to see you guys live and in person. So listen, we want to make sure that we invite each and every one of you. Listen, if you don't have if you haven't sent it out to like 100 people already, go ahead and send it out because I think you're going to really enjoy this particular show right here. I also want to say this right here. Listen, if you are on this show tonight and you're not looking to grow, you're not looking to better yourself, and you just want to be complacent and watch TV, this may not be the place for you. But if you're looking to grow, if you're looking to elevate, and you're looking to do better and see a new you in 2025, you are in the right place. So that being said, what I want to do is turn it over to my good friend because he is driving the train tonight.
Yeah, man. So again, everything that Coach has said, he said this is our first live show, live. The last 4 weeks we were pre-recorded shows, but again, I am so happy that you guys are joining us here tonight. I know it's Tuesday. I know people got life going on. They got kids, they got grandkids, they got husbands and wives, and a whole bunch of other things going on. So we do appreciate every single person who is in the chat, who is watching at home, who is on all the different platforms: YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of those different things. And also, we want to me and we just talked about it right before the show, so stay tuned. We're going to have a surprise for y'all at the end of the show. So in order to get the surprise and to know what's going on, you have to stay tuned in to the end of the show. All right. So, but with that being said, Coach, man, how are you? We get together on Friday night. I'm gonna plug your show for you. So Ella, Empowering Perspective podcast every Friday night on the Empowering Perspective YouTube channel, 8 o'clock p.m. Coaches Live. I'm on there almost every week with a couple of other brothers on there, and we're having some great conversations over there too. So don't forget to tune in over there on Friday nights at 8 p.m. What else? Any more other housekeeping things we need to
I don't
talk
know,
about
man.
before we get started, man?
I don't know. With the exception of that one surprise that we're going to hold to the end,
Oh,
I think you pretty much kind of covered all the housekeeping stuff.
all right.
But I will also say I want to plug my buddy over here because he and his wife, and I told him that their pictures, I'm going to coin it, I'm going to keep it, and it's going to show up magically one day. So make sure that you guys stay tuned because I'm going to unveil one of my favorite pictures of the Uncle Juniors. Right. It's an awesome picture. He went. In fact, I don't want to steal your thunder. Tell him what you did this weekend, man.
Well, so I did the Spartan race, the trifecta. So on Saturday, what you do is a 21K, so it's about 13 miles, and I think it has 30 obstacles. And then on Sunday, the next day, you do a 10K, which is just over 6 miles with 25 obstacles or 30 obstacles, somewhere around there. And then after that, there's a 5K, which is 3.2 miles and has about 25 obstacles. So I got the pleasure and to do it with my wife. So Saturday afterwards, I came home and I was talking about it. She saw that big old medal I had and stuff like this, and I was like, babe, you want to do it too? And she was like, okay. So I was happy, and then I started talking about it. She was a little nervous and stuff like that, but Miss Uncle Junior, shout out to her, she stepped up and we got the 5K done, and it was a wonderful time. I enjoyed it, and it's funny, man. All right, I'm gonna be a little transparent. I'm gonna get a little soft on y'all real quick, right?
All right,
So
you
it's
good?
funny, man. It's like me and my wife, we've been together for almost 10 years, but we've been married for almost 2. But I literally text her today and I told her, actually, let me find it. I don't want to misquote it. I want to make sure I get it right because she always watching. And I said that hold on. I just told this was 12/27. I just said, sometimes I just want to be around you. Like
Mhm.
that's simple. And sometimes like I just want to be around her. But I think, that's And I think that that's with any close relationship, because sometimes I just want to be in the presence of one of my sons. You know what I mean? Or sibling or something like that. So um I don't know why I said that. Maybe somebody out there needs to hear that. Who knows? But
Well, not just that. I will also add to it, like this is the thing that we talk about when we talk about relationships. It can't be superficial. It has to incorporate some deep connection to where, like, just being around that person just energizes you and does some other things that you can't even explain.
yeah,
And so later for the superficial stuff, right? You know,
yeah.
you got to get outside of that stuff. So I'm glad you did share that. But here's the other thing I would say: you would not be able to do it if it had nothing to do with tonight's topic. So that's the other part I
There
wanted
you
to
go.
as well.
Yeah. So, with that being said, folks, we're going to jump right into it. So, tonight we're talking about mental stability, the key to long term stability. So, with that being said, folks, what the heck is mental stability? All right. So, what's going to happen is I'm going to throw up the definition up here. And then, right after this, me and Coach are going to take turns at giving our interpretation of what we think mental stability is. So, and feel free that if you're in the chat, if you want to type in your definition, feel free to do so. So mental stability refers to a state of psychological well-being characterized by emotional balance, resilience, and effective coping mechanisms in the face of life's challenges. Right? That's the same thing I said when I looked at it, and then I quoted it and I stuck it up there. I was like, man, break it down in regular folks terms. So here's what I'm going to say mental stability is. And my interpretation with mental stability is it is a certain level of calmness that you have with inside of your brain, right? And what I mean by that is you're not so easily swayed. You're not so easily to pick up on some new information. You're not so easily stuck in a certain place. It's almost like having a certain level of mental balance. You know what I mean? To where you can balance a different or a certain amount of different things and not get too overwhelmed. I also want to say that mental stability can be a phase for some people. I think for most of all, I think when you get to a certain level, there's a certain level of mental stability. But I think sometimes we can go through phases where we may not be as mentally stable as other times in our life. For example, we may be mentally stable, but however, there may be something that comes up like a loss of a job, right? So now you still have a certain level of mental stability, but now there are some certain things that's going on that may take more brain power. So it can sometimes cause you to kind of go away sometimes. So that's why it's important that we work on mental stability um, on a daily basis, or at least on a regular basis. I think we need to do challenges, some exercises, or do something to help with our mental stability. I know I'm going jumping too far ahead, but in a sense, it's in a sense, it's kind of like a calmness or in your brain.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. I'm breaking that. It's like a kindergarten or third grade level. Just a calmness in your mind.
I like it. I like everything that you said. I kind of, for me, I like to look at it like you ever seen people juggle? Like
Yeah,
they're juggling balls, right? So it's like they're throwing it up and they're trying to make sure that they have the rhythm down to it. And so as they keep doing this thing, this motion right here, they're trying to ensure that the balls maintain the rhythm that they have going on. And as long as the balls maintain the rhythm with the catch and transfer and toss and catch and transfer and toss, everything is fine. But once the rhythm gets slightly off track, then what you'll find is that they're going to have to scramble to try to get them back on track. And if they can't get it back on track, everything is just going in disarray. It also kind of puts into perspective like a timing belt in a car. Like if your timing belt is off, your engine is going to be off. Like a lot of those things are going to be off. So I look at those different items that a person was juggle, whether it's like bowling pins or whatever. Those different items would either be a person's uh, it could show up in emotions, it can show up in thoughts, and it can show up in, well, let me say it like this: it is a juggle between a person's psychological health, emotional health, and like their physical health as well. But then those things will manifest itself in the form of thoughts, in the forms of feelings, and in the form of their behavior as well. So just like you said when you made mention that, it'll be certain situations to where they find themselves discombobulated and going in the whirlwind. Well, I believe those situations show up just so that you can see that this is something else that you have to work on. I don't think it's a bad thing when you find yourself emotionally challenged or mentally challenged in a certain situation, because that situation presented itself so that person can grow. But I also think that the way that a person can consistently maintain their equilibrium in between their thoughts, their emotions, and their behavior, that helps them to understand how mentally stable they are. But a lot of times, depending upon the situation they find themselves, they may get a little topsy turvy. And so, everything you said, I agree with. I would just say that it has to be, it's a degree of consistency. And so, what does that mean? That means that when it comes down to my psychological health, how fast can I pop back? So, when situation present itself, do I just go all disarrayed, or can I just go through the thing and go back to my safe space, my comfort space, things of that nature, so that I can maintain equilibrium throughout the ebbs and flow of life. And so I think when we look at it from that perspective, mentally stable people can go through things and it doesn't look like it is affecting them that much. Sure, they're human, sure they're going to display some emotions, but it shouldn't be to the point to where they just unravel at the seams.
And I was talking to somebody at work today, and it was funny because we were talking about mental stability, but we was using different words, and we was talking about that very thing. So it was funny how some of the things you said is were some of the same things that we talked about earlier. And I think one of the things that you mentioned that really stuck out to me is um I'm trying to decide if I want to talk about it right now or save it for my actionable advice. So I think I'm gonna save it for my actionable advice. So,
Okay, okay.
so I'm gonna save it. But man, when it comes to mental stability, right? So we're talking about it, but what's the why? Like, why is mental stability important? Like, why are we even having this conversation today? So, what is the purpose, or why should anybody even care about their mental stability?
I think for me, one of the most important things that we got to realize is, and I talk about this all the time, like everything that you want in life is available to you. But the issue is that in some cases you don't necessarily know, you don't necessarily have the upbringing that taught you those things or gave you permission to behave in that particular sense. So, in the space of psychological health, in the space of emotional health, and in the space of behavioral health, what you will find is that these are the things that control the outcomes of our lives. So whether we're talking relationships, kind of like what we're talking about with you and your wife, whether we're talking relationships, whether we're talking about financial growth, whether we're talking about growth on the job, or whether we're just talking about a healthy environment, whether within the scope of the family, within the scope of your friends, or whatever, those things are important because it drives everything. It's the catalyst behind everything. If those things are not intact, if they're kind of like unstable, then what you're going to find is that everything else is going to struggle as well. Think about it like this: you can have a PhD in whatever you want to have in, but if you are unstable emotionally, you can be Doctor Who for all I care. People aren't going to be around you. They don't want to be around you because you can't control you can't, well, let me say it this way: you can't regulate your emotions. If you are mentally unstable, then at the end of the day, it's going to be very difficult to gain a certain level of education. It's going to be very difficult to regulate your emotion. It's going to be difficult to maintain healthy relationships. And so what you will find is that those people will be in relationships with you, but a lot of times it's because they're family, because they're obligated, it's because all of these different things. So we got to look at this thing. Mental stability is that important. It is important enough for us to take the necessary time out so that we are mentally stable regardless of whatever situation we find ourselves in. You muted, bro.
Oh, I was gonna say, I said, man, you own it, man. That was a great response to this question. I just want to kind of add to, but not definitely not take away, as what I mean, in a simple turn, why is mental stability important? I think it's important for the unknown, right? in life there is a lot of unknown. And if because we don't know when someone is going to drop off the face of the earth, a loved one, when we're going to lose a loved one. We don't know if we're going to get that pink slip. We don't know if we're going to get that letter in the mail, or that information that can potentially send us in a whirlwind. So when we have a certain level of mental stability, then it helps us deal with some of those things a lot better. When you get that call that you lost your job, where if you have a certain level of mental stability, you still may go down for a little bit, but like you said before, you won't stay there. You have to bounce back and continue on and fight the fight. So now you get up, you're like, all right, well, what do I need to do to move forward? All right, well, the first thing I need to do is start looking for a job, right? I need to start looking for another job. I need to start looking at my finances and see what things may need to be adjusted here. You know what I mean? Or if you don't have a certain level of mental stability, you can just break down and you can cry, which is nothing wrong with that for a certain amount of time. But then you can get depressed, and all of these things can be normal. But I think when they get to a certain level, it can be detrimental to a person. So I think that when you have these things that come up in your life and you don't have a certain level of mental stability, you can do a lot more damage to yourself and even people around you. I mean, if you don't have a certain level of mental stability, and you're a father or a mother, and you're trying to raise a family or something like this, and you lose your job, it can be, you got kids, like you better have a certain level of mental stability in order to keep pushing on and keep moving and stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons why I think mental stability is important. Was you about to say something?
Well, I was just wanted to add to it, like if we struggle in the space of trying to find stability, then it really affects our positive outlook on life. So we can try to be as positive, and we can do all types of positive affirmations all we want to, but if you don't have the ability within your, if you don't have the psychological ability to hold the space of the positivity that you're trying to portray, then
Hmm.
you're going to just keep dipping back into what you did previously. So it really, really influences your positive outlook on life.
Hmm. I agree, man. Hey, man, you gonna get some of the Oh, there we go. Lisa Keys. Greetings and welcome to Tuesday's Night Coach's Corner. How are you? She can't respond. Go back to the other one. What was the first one? Ooh, what is
Is mental
mental
stability
stability?
hereditary?
Mental stability hereditary?
That's a good question.
Me personally, I do not know the answer to that. I I understand hereditary and I understand genetics. I also am a firm believer in settings and surroundings as well. So, because I really don't know the answer to this, I'm not going to say yes or no, but I am going to say that the surroundings that you are brought up in and who you surround yourself, even as an adult, definitely does affect can affect your mental stability. You take a child, for instance, that if the parents are not mentally stable, then I work in the education. A lot of times, I see students that are on the same path, but I can't confirm whether or not it's hereditary or if it's based off the environment.
I love your response. And before I respond, one of the things I want to make sure that I address is that neither one of us here are clinical psychiatrists. I want to start off by saying that. However, given the background that he and I both have, we've done some extensive study in when it comes down to the behavioral sciences. And so if you recall, when you go to the doctor, one of the things that they ask you, is there any history of this? Is there any history of that? Well, when you start looking at some of these psychological disorders that exist out there, and I'm not saying that mental instability is the same as a psychological disorder, but I'm saying that would be an extreme version of it. A psychological disorder can create mental instability. But they ask those questions so that they can try to look for the signs and symptoms of those particular disorders within the person. That said, I believe it can be in certain situations. Going back to what Garfield just said, I agree. when you have or you are raised in an environment to where you're taught through the lens of an unstable mindset, then you tend to adopt those things as well. So now that being said, is it hereditary? Six in one hand, half a dozen the other. But can it be shared and passed down to the child? I would absolutely say yes, it can be. So great question. Thank you for asking that. And again, ask questions. That's one of the things that we're here for. Ask all the questions that you want to ask, and trust me, we'll tear a show up just to
All
answer.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because that's why we're here. We're here for
yeah,
the audience
absolutely.
at the end of the day anyway. How does maintaining mental stability help cope with stress? Again, this is kind of similar to like the other question. I mean, the other question. You know, when you have a certain level of mental stability, and like I said, you get that phone call from the doctor that someone is, maybe passing, or that someone is I'm sorry. I got distracted real quick. Somebody came in my door because I heard something. But if you lose your job or something like that, I'm not going to, it's like the same thing. So when you potentially lose your job or something like that, if you're in a better mindset, it can help deal with the stresses that may come along with dealing with that. So I just think, I'll just leave it at that. I'll keep it short and sweet because um, I should have rechecked the questions a lot similar like the other one that we just answered. So,
Well, I do have one thought as we're talking about this, because I think it's easy to kind of look at mental stability versus mental instability, and people just kind of make up some things in their head. So, just from your thoughts, like what would be some of the misconceptions about mental stability?
um, a misconception about mental stability. Probably that I don't know if it's a misconception, but well, a misconception is that I think a lot more people, I think people think that they're a lot more mental stable than what they really are. And the test is when the stresses come. You know what I mean? When the stresses come, what do you do? Do you do mentally stable behavior, or do you practice mentally unstable behavior? Now, depend on what the situation is, it could go either way.
Right.
So I think that one of the biggest misconceptions is just people think that they're a lot more mentally stable than others. I see it all the time on Facebook. You know what I mean? I hear these people, they'll post these mentally stable quotes, and then you'll see their behavior right behind the video. And I'm not saying that they're not mentally stable. It's not
Right.
really for me to judge. However, comma, um, like I said, I'm not here to judge, and I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, that's just me personally. I just think a lot more people think that they are. I've been around some people like, oh man, I'm this, and I'm just like, bro, no, the way you acting about this, you're not mentally stable. Mentally stable people don't do this.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, ooh, perfect example. Maybe a perfect example. So I was listening to Mr. Charleston White
Mm.
the other day. He was through a TikTok thing, and he was talking about, he was on a show, and someone was asking him, hey, if someone was talking about you and your dead homies or something like that, like, you need to get at them fighting words. And Charleston White was like, no, they not. He said, them just words. He was like, I got to go home to my family. I got to go home. I think he said 9 kids or something like that, or his wife or something like that. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I've heard other grown men, even, you know, on elevated dialogue and stuff like that. I remember we having conversation. I'm just being real, and I remember people
I
on
got
there were talking and advocating for violence and different things like this. And I am not here to talk anything about them. You know what I mean? Everybody have their own opinion. But when I look at mental stability, people with mental stability, that's not their first response to words. You know what I mean? He was like, words don't hurt me. He said, words, this is what he said, not me. He said, words affect women and boys. He said, words don't affect men. These ain't my words. They Charleston White, so don't eat me up in the comments or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? But, you know what I mean? To his point is that people with mental stability don't are not ready to fight somebody because someone said something to them.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's my 2 cents. It
I
turned
like
into
that.
like 5 cents.
No, no, you're good. I like that, and I'm so glad you said that. But here's the other side of. I'm glad you led off with that one, but then I'm also glad you said it's not for me to judge,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's where we kind of get into the gray space, right? We don't necessarily view it from the perspective of me understanding where I am from a mental stability standpoint. Is for me to assess my behavior or my emotions or whatever, and then make the necessary changes for me moving forward. I hear your point of view, and I raised this one that if I view myself as mentally stable, all is well. Like I'll be happy, everything's going to work in my favor, and blah 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 blah. And then what ends up happening is that we start putting fictitious notions out into the atmosphere as though everything is just going to come to me. And it doesn't work that way. I believe wholeheartedly that just understanding where you are is just good enough so that you can understand where you need to go. So understanding that I can regulate my emotions, understand that I do, control my thoughts and things of that nature, understand that I do behave admirably in a particular situation. I think it has to come to the point to where we move forward and say, okay, now if that's where I am, it's for me to improve going forward, not for me to kind of hoist up the celebration flag and start telling everybody, I'm mentally stable, whatever the case may be. And so I think a lot of times we kind of look at those things and we think all is well. But then on the other side, if a person is on the other side of that fence, they may believe that just a lost cause, if this can't be improved, like everybody's after me, the world is trying to get me, these people trying to keep me down, and we exist in that zone. So you have the extremes of everything. You have these people who exist up here, and it's kind of like utopia, and then these people who exist down here, and it's all doom and gloom. And so I think we have to understand you are where you are, period, so that you can learn, that you can grow. If that's not your mindset, if that's not your perspective, if that's not your driving factor moving forward every day, then what is the purpose for assessing your own behavior? Or do you have the mentality that I don't need to assess my behavior? I just need to surround myself with people who just accept my behavior.
Man, I was listening, and one of the things that stood out to me was you said something about that I have the control. Like you put the control on self. Um, that's contradicting to a lot of people because a lot of people say that, well, I don't have I don't have no control. This is just how I am. The devil made me do it. You know what I mean? So, how does, in your opinion, how does control and mental stability kind of work? Because I was thinking about it and I know that they're kind of related. You know what I mean? I think if you have a certain level of mental stability, you have a certain level of control. But how do you think like control over self and mental stability work together?
They go hand in hand.
Mm,
I think where we get into error is that we try to control other people. You're not called to control another person. You can't control another person. In fact, there is nobody who has any control over you, period. Now, I'm not talking about job positions or things of that nature. That's totally different. I'm talking about control. So when it comes down to your thoughts, when it comes down to your emotions, when it comes down to your behavior, there's only one person who can control that. And at the end of the day, if you're not necessarily putting forth the effort to continue to get better, then what you're doing is you're relinquishing control to all the outside influences that influence your behavior, that influence how you feel, that influence what you think. Case in point, I mean, you've heard me say it time and time again that I don't have an envelope on my desk, but that letter from the IRS. You think I'm joking? Let the IRS send you a letter. What are you feeling before you even open that letter? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? If you can feel a sense of anxiety, the IRS have a degree of control over you. So now that is just awareness, not for you to call the IRS and give them a piece of your mind, right? It's awareness for you to say, why do I feel this way? Why am I feeling this? just so that now you can put forth the necessary efforts to change that. You know, who knows? The IRS might be sending you a letter and say, "Hey, you overpaid us last year. We owe you X amount of dollars. Where do you want me to send it?" I'm like, "Send it to me. You know where it came from. I sent it to you last year." So it's stuff like that. So when we start talking about control, I think that's a great point, because the same thing applies when it comes down to like conversation in the midst and you see it all the time. Say one thing to a person that they don't agree with, and we live in a time and space. I don't agree. I really don't
I
care
don't care.
if you agree or not. Can you consider what is being said and process it mentally? Right? We live in a space to where people feel like, number one, freedom of speech means I have the freedom to speak. Number two, how I feel is law. And then number three, because I disagree, I have a requirement to announce that. Wrong. So if we get to the point till we start regulating ourselves, right, regulating our mouth, right, regulating how we feel, regulating our thoughts, then you'll realize that the outcome can be so much better.
Man, you got it for me. Hey, folks, we're about 30 minutes into the show right now. So if you haven't already, smash that like button. And what else? Share it with somebody who may benefit from it. You know what I mean? I think we're having a pretty decent conversation over here today. If I must say so myself, yes, I'm tooting my own horns, but I'm also tooting. No, I'm not tooting. All right, let's move right along. Um, Can mental and physical abuse impact your mental stability long term, and can it be reversed? I would say right off the rip, yes, it can. However, comma, at some point, someone needs to go get some support for this or some help for that. You know what I mean? I don't know what necessarily mean by reverse, but I think kind of, I do know what it means by reverse. So I think that it can have long. Let me back up. Can mental and physical abuse impact your mental stability long term, and can it be reversed? My answer is yes. And yes, I think that with the proper help and support, you can get rid, not necessarily get rid of, but you can, those things can be an afterthought. You can continue to move on with your life. You can get mental stability back. You can get that again. You know what I mean? Like I said, kind of at the beginning, mental stability can be a phase. You know what I mean? If you look at an average person, probably throughout their day, you know, there are certain levels of mental stability that we go through. At certain levels, we may wake up, maybe really high, really stable, right? Something may happen, it may shake us a little bit. We may be right here, and then we may get back up again because everything is okay again. We may get some bad news. It may shake us a little bit. So I think even in a in a day, our mental stability can be adjusted a little bit. But again, my answers to both of these to this question is yes and yes.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I apologize for smiling. I just happened to see what Nick D wrote, and she like, "I'm thinking I already paid y'all. So what do you want?" I was like, "Wait, what?" But then I remember the IRS thing. So
Yeah,
so I'm
Aaron.
with you. I'm with you on this, right? It would have been like a
Mm-hmm.
basketball response to me, yes and yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can mental and physical abuse impact your mental stability long term? Absolutely. Like, think about it for a moment. If you were raised in an environment to where you were told you're not going to amount to anything, you're no good, you're blah 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 blah, and you hear this constantly, then as you grow up, that is like it starts to take its toll. Like, I don't care who you are, if somebody tell you something constantly over and over and over again, eventually you're going to start believing it. And here's the truth of the matter: you don't have to believe it 100%. If you believe a portion of it, that portion will work itself out in your life, and it will manifest itself in the facet of your behavior or your emotions as well. So a lot of times these mental abuses, these situations where mental abuse exists, right? It kind of manifests itself in the person to where they shy away from certain things. They don't want to be open. They kind of struggle in the space of relationship. When it comes down to physical abuse, like, come on, like, you won't open yourself up to anybody. Like, you will refuse to let anybody in, and you don't have any depth and breadth of relationship because of the lasting long-term effects of physical relationships. Now, can it be reversed? Absolutely. Sometimes it takes a medical professional to help you, but at the end of the day, it is possible. What I would say, and I know you were just asking this for sake of understanding, but I would say if there's anybody out there who is hearing this and you believe that you were raised in this environment or you exist in this environment currently, like don't be afraid to go see a professional. Go see a psychologist, right? Call up Garfield. You know what I'm saying? Like don't be afraid. I'm joking, but I'm serious. Like
Yeah.
don't be afraid. Like you have to take the first step before anybody else can help you because no one can come in your home and do anything, right? Make sure that the person that you're working with, make sure they know what they're doing. There's too many people out there who are calling themselves a thing and they have zero certification behind their names, right? That's why we can come up here confidently and call this platform Coach's Corner because we're certified. But
Certified.
again, like I said, I know for a fact that there are people that just woke up and say, "Hey, think I'm gonna be a coach today," and that's what they do. So
Hmm.
that's a dangerous game to play. So again, make sure that the person that you're dealing with know what they're doing. Make sure that they're certified, and make sure that they have a way, an understanding of how to do connecting work.
And to add to that, make sure that you are going to the right person for your problem or for your issue or situation, right? So I'm also a certified counselor. So I'm a counselor and a coach, but those are two different things, right? So a counselor or a therapist, what they tend to do is they start from the past and then they work to the present.
Yep.
What a coach does, the coach will start from the present to where you want to be or where you want to go. So just be mindful of, when you're going out there, when you're searching or you're looking for help or support or like that, that you get, like Coach said, get with some people who got some credentials and make sure you get with the right person for the need that you may have. So
Can I
um
add something? I kind of just
yeah,
listening to
man.
you, listening to you break that down. That pleased me because I tell people this all the time. A true, honest coach, if you can't bring your thoughts out the past, they won't work with you.
Nope.
I've had a situation to where, and that person will remain nameless, of course. I had a situation to where there was a young lady who was referred to me, and she wanted to talk about what she was getting ready to go through. And so I listened to her for a good 30 to 45 minutes straight. And then I said, I got all of that. I said, but I want us to focus on you, where you are right now, and what you want to do moving forward. And she told me, she said, I can't. I want to talk about that. I say, well, I mean, I got it, but if you just go back and talk about that, you're going to stay there and your thoughts are going to constantly recycle. Well, I got it, but, I need to talk about that. I said, well, I can't help you. I'm sorry. You need to go find a counselor. You need to go find somebody who is a psychotherapist, so forth and so on. Because if you're struggling with your thoughts and you can't bring your thoughts out of the past, saying that this person should have, this person could have, this person would have, and look for where you are to move forward, then you're not ready for the type of work that we do. And so I literally had to tell her that I can't help her and I would not take her money simply because at the end of the day, that's not what coaches do.
And to that, the same thing with the trainer, physical trainer too. If you trying to work out, same thing. Every trainer ain't for you. Some people just gonna go out there and give you. They're gonna go on the internet. They're gonna put in a couple numbers and they're gonna print you out a workout plan, and that's all you're gonna get. They're not gonna ask you certain questions and stuff like that to make sure that you guys are a true fit. So man, where we at now? Listen, you know what, folks? You know what we got for y'all over here on Coach's Corner now? We got some true false questions over here. So y'all can feel free. Go ahead. What you got?
Can we get the people a shout out real quick, man?
Yeah, man.
I mean,
Shoot 'em
we
out.
we ain't shout the people out, man. We appreciate you guys. Listen, wherever you are, like Garfield said previously, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on X, or whether you're on LinkedIn, we want to make sure that we appreciate you guys, right? Listen, again, we normally try to call you guys by name, and again, by all means, if I miss somebody, please don't get mad at me. I'm human, so I may miss it. So shout out Michelle Ray, Crystal Everett, Nick D, Miss Verly McCoy, good to see you. Miss Bernadette Simmons, Lee Chatham, good to see you, brother. Welcome to the show. Let's see who else that I miss. I know I seen Ben. I'm about to call him Ben Hur, Mr. Ben Sadiq. I know I see you out there, brother. That's Roland, by the way. That's his his stage name. Also also Miss Adrian Walter, good to see you. Mr. Antoine Lyons, good to see you, brother. Always good to see you, and welcome to the show. And Chris from across the table with
Chris
from McClellan, good to see you, brother, and welcome to the show.
and
Um, If I miss anybody else again, I apologize. I think I got everybody. But at the end of the day, just so that you know, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m., we will be right here on Coach's Corner. Okay. I done broke your stride long enough, brother.
Oh, you good.
Back over.
All right. So the first true false question of the night is: mental stability refers to the absence of stress or challenges in one's life. Coach, is that true or false?
Yes. No, I'm joking. No. False.
False.
Totally
Why?
false.
Why is
Why?
that false? Why is
Because
it?
I believe that situations must show up to challenge you, not just challenge
Mm.
you, but so that you can grow from where you are. Your life was never intended to be stagnant. You were never supposed to get comfortable. And I think a lot of times what we do is we try to find comfort zones. So we go from comfort zone to comfort zone. Like I'm in my comfort zone, and so I'm working with Garfield now. Garfield, I need for you to be comfortable in my comfort zone. No, that's not what relationships are. Garfield is supposed to push me outside of my comfort zone. That's how I know he care about me, and vice versa. And the same thing comes. I hate to say it. I'm sorry. People ain't gonna like it. That's all right. Same thing with husband and wife, right? We should not be finding comfort zones. Like I keep shouting them out because again, both of them went and did a Spartan. I'm not doing that. A Spartan race? No. But look, they doing this as husband and wife couple. So shout out to them because I think that's awesome. But the answer to this, without a doubt, hands down, is no. You're never supposed to just get comfortable and settle down in a comfort zone. I believe wholeheartedly the day that you stop growing is the day that you actually put in your request to die.
I like false too. I think, like, even if you are at the highest level of mental stability, life is going to still life. Life don't stop regardless of your mental stability. It don't matter what goes on, life is still going to life. People are still going to pass away. People are still going to have accidents. We're going to get older. People are going to fall down, break hips. I'm just saying, life is still going to life. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So at the end of the day, better work on your mental stability. You know what I mean? Because life ain't going to stop. And the more resilient you are and the more mental stability you have, I think the better you are as a person. Do we
Ooh,
have any more
ooh,
questions? Oh,
ooh,
go ahead.
I got one more. I got one
Oh,
more.
yeah, there you
This
go.
this this for all my praying folk out there, right? I'm sorry.
Uh-oh, you about to touch on some toes.
This for all
Hey,
my
that's
praying.
coach.
This for all my praying folk out there. I know we like to pray to ask God for certain things, but let me tell you what I believe. The minute that we ask Him for certain things, what we're doing is we're asking Him for the tribulation that comes along with that thing. Why? Because in order for you to get the thing that you're praying for, you have to become the person that can receive it at that point in time. So when you pray and say, "Hey, I want this," then the tribulation is coming to move you out of your comfort zone so that you can be the person to receive it.
And also be specific.
Be
I be
specific.
specific about what I want. Just saying. All right. What's the next one? True false. Achieving long-term success is solely dependent on external factors such as talent and opportunity rather than mental stability. I can't even get that out without laughing. So I already know that's false.
You going? You say you already know that's false?
Yeah, I know that's
Yeah,
false.
I
You know
gotta
what I
agree
mean?
with you. I
Um,
is this first on me or you? I'm sorry.
I'll no, go ahead, go ahead, go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah. So I tend to talk. I mean, I've mentioned this, and you guys who in the Diamond Club, you remember that. You remember this one. I talked about contributing factors and deciding factors. Anything external to you in most cases are contributing factors. They're not the deciding factor. Like case in point, if I come to the fork in the road, well, I can go left or go right, but I have to make a decision on which way I'm gonna go. The information that I know in relation to where I'm trying to go will help me in making that decision. But at the end of the day, the last decision is on me. So when we look at certain things, there are contributing factors and deciding factors. And unfortunately, we put way too much weight on contributing factors and say that's the reason why this didn't happen. I'll give you a perfect example. Like, let's just say for tonight, if I was late, and if I was late because I decided to go to the store at like 6:45 and I didn't make it back to like 7 o'clock on the dot, and I sat in the chair and I'm like sweating, and I made it, right? And Garfield like, come on, man, you're supposed to be in here at 6, at least 6. Well, see what had happened. I had to go to the store. No, you made a decision to go to the store. You didn't have to go to the store, right? So the store was not the deciding factor. The store was only a contributing factor, but the store could have waited. So that's what we do a lot. And I'm only using that one because it's real lighthearted. But if you think about it, there's a lot of times we will look at a contributing factor and say, that's the reason why. Anything that's external to you, unless it is driving a decision, right? And I'm saying that intentionally, unless the external thing is driving the decision, case in point, you didn't pay your mortgage and now they done came and put a notice on your door and now you got to go. Well, we want to say, well, they tell me that they evicted me out. No, you didn't pay the bill. The deciding factor was that. That's the reason why you got to go. So I can't say, hey, they're doing this to me. No, you did it to yourself because you made the decision. Exactly.
Mhm.
There's excuses. And
Excuses.
we do it all the time.
Yep. Man, for my 2 cents to this question is, the streets are filled with a bunch of people who had talent and opportunity. They
Mm,
didn't have the mental stability. How many people made it to the league and with talent and opportunity, and in 2 or 3 years they're out, 1 year they're out because they didn't have the mental stability that goes along with being in the league, or going along with being in the NFL or whatever. That corporation, that opportunity, we saw it. We saw it in the military. We
mhm,
had guys that had talent and opportunity, but they didn't have the mental stabilities. I know somebody who didn't have, enough mental stability, and they went a long way in their career, and they had a lapse in judgment, and they wasn't, at 17 years, and they end up having to get out. You know what I'm saying? So mental stability is, this is 100% false right here. So yeah, 100% false.
that's a good example right there too.
Yep.
Maurice Claret. Yeah,
Yep. Mental stability.
yeah.
Man.
All right.
True, false.
Priority.
Prioritizing. Oh, go ahead,
No,
read
no,
it.
no, no. You got it.
Prioritizing mental health and self-care is a sign of weakness and may hinder long care success.
Two thumbs down.
Two
Two
thumbs
thumbs
down.
down. Yeah, man. Um, Prioritizing mental health, and I won't even. I mean, I say self care, but just care in general.
Mm,
Um, it is not a sign of weakness at all. In fact, it's more of a sign of strength because recognizing that I need help with my mental health, surrounding myself with people. I'm kind of getting into action steps, but surrounding myself with people who can help me identify some of the things that I cannot see. Right, having people in my corner that can tell me certain tips, tell me certain things that I can do better for myself in a way of self care. I mean, I'm not talking about taking a shower and putting on cologne or nothing like that. I'm talking about like meditating and things of those nature. Like people who teach you how to meditate, talk to you about meditate, talk to you about like ways to kind of center yourself. Like those people are great to have in your corner. So this is not a sign of weakness at all. This is a sign of strength, and it's probably one of the strongest attributes that you have. Having the ability to center yourself and think about something specifically, and I talk about it a lot, like focus on one thing, right? And you focus on the stylus for the next 5 minutes. Can I focus on the stylus? Look at it, think about it. Don't allow my thoughts to drift any place else, right? If I have the ability to do that, that is a strength. It's not a weakness because remember, and I'm just gonna put us out there, little young fellas, when we was in school, right? And I ain't talking about college either. I'm talking about like middle school. That's kind of like the years, the middle schools and early high school. You sit there and you try to pay attention. You just kept looking to the left and to the right. You know what I'm saying? Because you couldn't pay attention. Your thoughts was on, whoever was sitting over there,
mhm.
what she had on and so forth and so on. So you got to get to the point to where you recognize that this is one of the best things that you can do. Prioritizing mental health and self care.
You got the next one.
I got the next one.
Yeah.
I'm nervous. Long term success can be achieved without addressing underlying mental health issues or emotional well being.
See, this is the part. That's why I wanted to go first, right? Because I didn't want you to sway my answer, right? Because if you would have spoke first, I think I may have swayed my answer a little bit, right? So I'm kind of on the fence about this,
Okay.
right? And the reason why is because I'm looking at what is considered success that's very, relative to the person. We also, like I said, we see people on the streets who had talent and who had opportunity, but they didn't have the mental stability and they're on the streets. We also have seen some people who have had what we may consider some long-term success. We look at actors, we look at athletes and stuff like this, and we also see them as what we may think. Remember, Coach said before, we're not psychologists or anything like so. We're not psychiatrists. You know what I mean? But um, let's look at this is my dude right here, right? But some people may say he has some mental issues, right? Dennis the Worm Rodman, right? Had some success, had some long-term success in the NBA, right? But a lot of people have looked at him and considered him as someone who has had some underlining mental health issues. You know what I'm saying? And I think that if we look, we can find more examples of this, probably even in our own, yeah, and definitely in the entertainment industry. But again, that comes back down to what is considered long-term success. You know what I'm saying? So with this right now, I haven't fully went true or false. So I'm still kind of on the fence of this. And the reason why I'm on the fence is just because of the term success.
I like what you did there. And I
I
don't know if
don't know my
I don't
answer, man.
I don't think I would have swayed your answer though, because I'm
Okay.
agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with the part where you're saying that it pretty much depends on what you perceive success to be. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's not the focus in this question. The
Okay.
focus in this question for me is long term. See, I like the fact that you brought up somebody like Dennis Rodman, fantastic basketball player,
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal basketball player. But when you look at the social life, relationships, things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature, even in his prime, they were like up and down. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Nothing stable, nothing consistent.
Yep.
You're hearing all types of things in social media. And for me, it bothers me that, people will air their family laundry on social media, because I'm hearing something about Brian McKnight these days. Again, Brian McKnight, somebody from the singing industry who's had long term success, fantastic, phenomenal singer. I used to love listening to his music.
There's a bunch of kids was made off of Brian McKnight.
I didn't want to go there, man, but I'm just saying.
Just saying.
But it's some concerns now. Speaking of kids, about his kids. So I
Mm,
think the notion for me is not necessarily success; it's more so of long term, because for a thing to be long term, it requires it to be some type of foundation, some type of stableness that exists within the realm of that. So my thoughts here has to be no, because here's the deal: I can put on a show, but only do it for a period of time. When I start settling in, then next thing you know, y'all gonna see the real me. Once y'all see the real me, it's like, look, man, I've been trying. This all I got. This all I got. And you see it every day with people, because I always say there's three parts of every person, right? You got you got the mirror, you got the mask, and you got the core. And so people will give you the mirror immediately, and they will uphold the mirror for as long as they possibly can. If we only have a working relationship, that means you only got to keep the mirror up while you're at work. Once you go home, you can take the mask off. I'm sorry, you can take. I'm sorry, you will hold the mask for as long as you're at work. But once you go home, you can take the mask off. But at some point in time, there has to be some degree of longevity to where you see that person through the ebbs and flow of life. Like, how do you respond? And this to me is really a relationship question. Like, how do you respond in the place of adversity? Like, if we go out, and I'm just using this as an example, if we go out to eat dinner, are you treating a waiter or waitress with kindness, or are you barking at them and ordering, acting like they're beneath you and things of that nature? See, these things show a lot. I'm not too impressed about what a person does on camera. I'm
mm.
more impressed about understanding who you really are, because that's the core preach behind this. So long-term success, it can only be achieved, if I had to adjust this, it can only be achieved by addressing underlying mental issues, and emotional well-being.
Okay. Well, I like it. I don't think my answer would have been swayed though. Like you
See, I
said.
told you. I told you.
I think I would have still been the
And
same.
here's the funny part about it. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that your answer isn't right. That's
Yeah.
a Like I agree with what you're saying. There's
Mhm.
it's based upon a person's level of success. If
Yeah,
making a lot of money is success, then trust
yeah,
me, there's a lot of people in the industry that
yeah.
has done that. Right? They don't really have. They may not have a lot of great relationships, but they have made a lot of money. And you know what
Yeah.
they say? You can buy a relationship. I guess.
Man, no,
So,
you can't.
hey, hey, man, that's what they believe, bro.
Yeah. I mean, can you? I
That's
don't know
what they.
anybody.
That's what they believe. I don't believe that.
Yeah, I can't even see how that fundamentally even makes sense. But shout out to they. Shout out to they. Right? We'll leave, we will shout out everybody tonight, even
That's
they.
it.
Um, what's the next one? Building mental stability requires constant self-awareness and proactive efforts to manage stress and emotions.
Touchdown.
Touchdown. We got a true over here, coach now.
We got a winner.
Okay, we got a true. Why is this true?
Well, because I believe I think you touched on it earlier when you made mention that there are some people who say this is just who I am, right?
Mm.
The issue is, and I'm gonna turn this into a money thing. If I only have, X amount of money, or I make X amount of money, and I have been making X amount of money for the past 15, 20 years with no raises or whatever, then eventually inflation will eat away at X amount of money that I make, especially if I'm not making wise decisions with the money that I make. I think the same thing happens when it comes down to your character. So if your character is the same and has been the same for the past 20 years, the world and life as you know it has changed at least five, six different times between the time that Private Martin existed and you're looking at the retiree Martin right here, the counselor, the consistency coach, things of that nature. So you can't have the same behavior in 2024 that you had in 1994. It is virtually impossible. So if you're not constantly being aware of how you present yourself to the world, how you process information, how you regulate your emotions, how you interact with people, then you cannot say that I am seeking to grow, because all of those things are what I tend to call like the stabilizers when it comes down to your growth pattern. So, therefore, the more I become aware of how I behave in certain situations, the better, the more I can change it. Therefore, those situations can actually be, the response that I get in those situations, they become different, they become better. The relationships that I have, they become better, they become more enriched. They literally become relationships with depth and breadth, which in essence equates to what is it? Intimacy. They're intimate relationships to where you honestly care about people, not the superficial stuff. I'm gonna tell you that I care, but in your time of need, I'm gonna say, "Oh, well, I was busy." I'm no, no. I'm like, if I say it, trust and believe, I'm here. I'm here with you. If you're out in the middle of the ocean, I can't swim, right? But if you're out in the middle of the ocean of life, I want to make sure I'm clear when I say that. If you're out in the middle of the ocean of life, you pick up the phone and call me at 11 o'clock at night, I'm on the phone with you from 11 to 1 o'clock in the morning, however long it takes. But you cannot be that for anybody else when you're still out there in the middle of the ocean dog paddling. So that's kind of like my point. We got to have proactive measures, and those measures got to continue to grow as we grow.
Well, y'all heard it there, folks. All I'm going to say is true. I'm not coming back behind that. So,
Wow.
no, I'll add to a little bit. All right, just a little bit. I'll add a little bit add a little bit more salt to it. All right. I think one of the thing I would add to is self-reflection. I think self-awareness and self-reflection are similar, but not necessarily the same. I think they hang out in the same places. You know what I mean? Um, but when you spend time intentionally working on yourself, looking for not necessarily issues in your life, but looking for shortcomings or looking for areas of improvement in your life. You know what I mean? I think that right there helps build your mental stability. When you're proactive and you saying, "Hey, look, I'm not going to wait to the last minute and 6:45 to run to the store. I'm gonna leave at 6 o'clock. That way I'll be back by 6:15. So I'm not late to the show at 7 o'clock." So that's being proactive. That's managing your time, managing stress, emotions. When things come up, what are you going to do with those emotions when they are set? or placed on your lap. You know what I mean? We have to do something with them. And for most people, like you said, they're fork in the road. You know what I mean? You have to make a decision and you have to eventually go down one of those roads. But folks, we are at the 1 hour mark, and this is where we're on. This is a 1 hour show. If you want an hour and a half, you can slide over this Friday night and you can check out the Empowering Perspective podcast. It'll be 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time until 9:30. So you got
But
an hour and
wait,
a half over there.
but wait, you do have something to share.
Not yet, though. I'm gonna wait
Okay,
till after the actionable
all
advice.
the way to the end.
So all right, folks, we are back with actionable advice or some actionable steps that you can use throughout the week until you tune in with us next week at 7 p.m. So these are tangible things that you can actually do to help you on your journey of life. So tonight, for my actionable advice, when it comes to mental stability, I want to start with using applying what I want to call the 10-minute rule, right? So I like even numbers. I don't like odd numbers. So when and if you have a situation that comes up, you have 10 minutes to deal with that situation. Now, well, I'm not talking about an extreme situation like death or of a family member or something like this. I'm just talking about someone says something at work, someone cuts you off or something like that, where you are when you kind of sends you off balances kind of sends you off balance. What I want you to do is take 4 to 6 minutes and vent. Get mad. You can do whatever you want to do. If you're a type of person and you cuss, then you give it all the negative energy you want for 4 to 6 minutes. After that 4 to 6 minutes, you take, like I said, it's the 10 minutes. So I prefer to take about, depends on how bad the situation is. I may take 6 minutes to vent and to deal with that situation. But then I'm going to take the other 4 minutes or the other 6 minutes and I'm trying to figure out a solution or a better path for whatever I just went through. If someone cut me off and I got ticked off, why did I get ticked off? That second 4 minutes is for figuring out the reason why I may have got ticked off and figuring out a plan to do better or to control my mental stability in the future. So that's my actionable advice is the 10-minute rule. If something happens to you, take 4 to 6 minutes to vent or to deal with it, and then take the other 4 to 6 minutes and figure out a solution to whatever that just went on.
I'm gonna tell you, man, you kind of stole mine. I'm not gonna lie. I'm still gonna share it, but I just want you to know you stole it. I'm gonna say the same thing almost, but it's a little different. I want you to, in the space of routine practices, I want you to make it a practice to self-reflect. Now, what does that really mean? That means that at some particular point in time, and it has to be the same time every day, I want you to reflect on your day, regardless, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't really care. Reflect on your day. I want you to write down something good that happened. I want you to write down something bad that happened. I want you to assess the emotions within the space that that this thing happened. Why did I feel the way I feel? Even if it's good, why did I feel this way? What were the contributing factors and what were the deciding factors to this thing? Right. And then what can I learn based upon this situation? If it's a bad situation that you don't necessarily harmonize with, then what can I do to change it? Therefore, when this situation presents itself again, I respond to it differently. Like I talked about the IRS letter. If I got a letter from the IRS and I started feeling anxiety, then why do I feel anxiety? Write that down. You know what I'm saying? And then so forth and so on. Now, how can I change that? Even if it's good, right? If it's a good thing, why do I feel good about this? What triggers this, so forth and so on. And then, like, how can I make it better? I think good things can be improved to be better. I think a lot of times we sacrifice great for good enough. And I think too many times we exist in the space of good enough simply because achieving great seems a little uncomfortable. Get out of that, right? Get out of your comfort zone. Smash comfort zones when it comes down to that. I don't care what it is. Smash your comfort zones when it comes down to relationships. Smash your comfort zone when it comes down to your finances. And smash your comfort zone when it comes down to the outcome of the life that you want to have. I think when we do that, when we create a routine based upon self reflection, I think that is the gateway that can actually catapult us into a life of growth. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a lifestyle of growth. And then eventually, all you got to be like Garfield and a whole bunch of coaches.
That was a good one. And folks, so here's what we got. All right. So here's the surprise. All right. So what we're going to do right after show, shortly after the show, actually approximately 8:15. We need a couple of minutes, right, to go do take care of some things. So at 8:15 tonight, Coach and I are both going to go live on TikTok, right? So I don't know how to find us. Maybe I'll put my TikTok in there. I think my Uncle Junior TikTok is the same, whatever, like that. What I'll do is I'll stick, Coach, if you can drop your TikTok in the chat, and then I'll see if I can drop mine in the chat too. So what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, again, we are both coaches, and I have a client, and what we're going to kind of do is we're going to just kind of talk through some kind of talk through his situation, and he already know I'm doing it, so I've already had he's already said that it was okay. But I'm not going to use any of his names or anything like that. But we're just going to talk to a situation that I am that a client of mine has have, and it's kind of want to invite you guys to just join in and just be a part of the discussion. Feel free to join in and be part of the live show. So again, it's going to be on TikTok here in about 9 minutes from now. So we will see y'all at TikTok in a couple of minutes. And then we will see y'all again Friday for the Empowering Perspective podcast. And then we'll see y'all back here for Coach's Corner next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Coach, do you have anything before we close out, brother?
I just want to just shout out to the people, man. The reason why we do this is for y'all. We really do believe that we're giving some actionable steps, like things you can literally do right now in your life, and you'll see some improvements. So I just want to kind of shout you guys out and lift you up. And again, if you find value with this, share this with other people so that they can participate. I think too many times people behave like gatekeepers. If they have information, they want to hoard it. Well, as you can see, we're not hoarding anything over here. We're sharing because we want to have a community of growth minded individuals that really achieve the best in life overall. So, again, shout out to you. Blessings to every last one of you. And that's my final thoughts, man. That's it. That's all I got.
Peace.